Hi everyone! Welcome back to 40 Days of Lent with the Screwtape Letters. In today's episode, we continue with the theme of worry in the face of uncertainty. The patient suspects he may be recruited to fight in the First World War, and Screwtape wants to take full advantage of this. How? Well, let's first begin with a prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our defense against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world for the ruin of souls. Amen. So, the war is on, and the patient doesn't know whether he'll be called up for military service or not. Screwtape is delighted by this, but not for what you may imagine. It's not about the real death and destruction happening, but rather the hypothetical and imagined pain and suffering that the patient might have to endure if he is enlisted in the army. You see what we are getting at with this? It's all about hijacking our attention with imagined worries and fears, rather than focusing our mental energies on the crosses we have to bear in the here and now. In the book titled Furrow, Saint Josemaria makes the following observation. There are souls who seem bent on inventing sufferings, on torturing themselves with their imagination. Afterwards, when objective sorrows and contradictions come their way, they do not know how to be like the Most Holy Virgin at the foot of the cross with her eyes fixed on her Son. And that's exactly what Screwtape wants the patient to suffer. Get him to imagine all the possible sufferings that might come his way, being called up, being injured, being killed, and to begin mentally preparing himself against all of them, to spend his spiritual energies practicing patience and virtue in advance toward a dozen different hypothetical fates, all the while ignoring the daily cross that Jesus is asking him to pick up. And this is where we get philosophical. Let's talk about the power of the imagination. Saint Teresa of Avila had a wonderful name for the imagination. She called it La Loca de la Casa, the mad woman of the house. And if the devil has a formidable ally, it's our wayward imagination. You see, the mad woman doesn't need to be fed by reality, she generates her own. She invents hatreds, she nurses infatuations, she rehearses humiliations, catastrophizes futures, and replays past wounds with extra dramatic embellishment, all without a single external event to prove her right. And while she does all this, the real crosses go unnoticed. The actual responsibilities, the difficult conversation you need to have, the person right in front of you who needs your attention, those go uncarried. And what's worse, the imagination is one of those human faculties that the demons actually have some influence over. In the Summa Theologica, St. Thomas Aquinas explains that the devil cannot touch our will directly. Only God can do that, and even he respects our freedom. Our freedom is, in that sense, a sanctuary that no demon can enter by force. But, and this is the crucial part, Aquinas also teaches that demons can act on our imagination. They can stir and manipulate those interior images, those mental pictures and emotional memories that the imagination is always shuffling and recombining. They cannot make us choose evil, but they can flood the house with raw material for the madwoman to work with. They can turn up the volume on a fear, sharpen the edges of a resentment, or make a temptation appear far more vivid and attractive than it really is. This is why an unguarded imagination is not merely a psychological problem, it's a spiritual vulnerability. If we hand the madwoman an endless supply of material to dramatize and distort, we've done half the devil's work for him. He simply lights the fuse. The explosion is ours. But here's the consoling flip side of that same coin, and it is worth dwelling on. If demons can act on our imagination, so can our guardian angel. Aquinas teaches that the good angels work through those same interior channels, stirring a holy image at the right moment, prompting a memory of something good and true, casting a sudden clarity over a situation we had been seeing all wrong. The battle for the imagination is being fought from both sides. Screwtape has his strategies, but so does your guardian angel, and with considerably more love and considerably more patience. This is why the Church has always encouraged us to cultivate a real, personal devotion to our guardian angel, not as a pious sentiment, but as a practical alliance. You have a protector who knows the mad woman of the house very well, and who has been gently trying to calm her down since the day you were born. Nevertheless, grace presupposes nature. Our guardian angels can do so much if we've spent years feeding our imagination, day after day, with content that is coarse, violent, lustful, or simply trivial. If we have handed the mad woman of the house an endless diet of degrading entertainment, bitter rumination, and pointless fantasy, then our guardian angel is working against a considerable interior mess of our own making. He can't clean the house by force. He can prompt and suggest and illuminate, but he can't simply override the habits we have freely cultivated. Screwtape, in that sense, doesn't always need to work very hard. The question worth asking during this Lent is a simple and uncomfortable one. What have I been feeding the mad woman of my house? And here is where we get really deep and a bit confusing. Screwtape lays out what he calls a general rule that's worth thinking about carefully. He says, one can therefore formulate a general rule. In all activities of mind that favor our cause, encourage the patient to be unself-conscious and to concentrate on the object, but in all activities favorable to the enemy, bend his mind back on itself. Let an insult or a woman's body so fix his attention outward that he does not reflect, I am now entering into the state called anger, or the state called lust. Contrariwise, let the reflection, my feelings are now growing more devout or more charitable, so fix his attention inward that he no longer looks beyond himself to see our enemy or his own neighbors. In other words, when you are sliding towards sin, Screwtape doesn't want you to pause and notice what is happening inside you. He wants your attention locked on the object, the grievance, the screen, the person you resent, and with your imagination, magnify the situation. Thus, the more vivid and concrete the object, the less likely you are to step back, catch yourself, and choose differently. Think of what this looks like today. Imagine someone who has gotten into the habit of spending hours every evening scrolling mindlessly through their phone. Screwtape's strategy is to keep their attention entirely on the content, the next post, the next video, the next small hint of stimulation, and never ever allow a moment of interior silence in which the person might surface and think, what am I actually doing? Where did the last 2 hours go? Is this the person I want to be? The moment that question arises, the spell is broken. But flip it around, when the patient sits down to pray, suddenly Screwtape is very interested in interiority. Now he wants the patient entirely focused on his feelings about prayer. Is it working? Am I distracted? Do I feel anything? Is God even there? Rather than on God himself objectively in his heart. The attention collapses inward, and prayer becomes an anxious self-audit rather than an encounter with the real person of Jesus Christ. So, what is our Lenten takeaway after all these philosophical and psychological musings? The first resolution is this: bring your imagination under the discipline of the present. When you notice yourself rehearsing hypothetical sufferings, imagining difficult futures that have not arrived and may never arrive, stop. Not because the future doesn't matter, but because the grace to bear future sufferings will be given in the future, not now. What you are doing is borrowing suffering without the corresponding grace, and that is a form of self-torture that serves no spiritual purpose. Our Lady stood at a real cross, present in that moment, with her eyes fixed on her Son. Practice that posture. Ask yourself, what is the actual cross in front of me today? My daily cross, not the one I fear, the one that is actually here. The mad woman of the house is loudest when we give her the floor. Don't give her the floor. Thanks for listening.